A leadership candidate for one of Labour's biggest union backers has been suspended from the party after he suggested that the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, should be deported. Howard Beckett, who's standing to be elected as Unite's new General Secretary, has been heavily criticised for his tweet, which he quickly deleted. In that tweet, he said, Priti Patel should be deported, not refugees. She can go along with anyone else who supports institutional racism. She is disgusting. Well, joining me now is our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Prompt action by the Labour Party's disciplinary people. Lots of people have been kicked out of political parties for what they've said in the past. Why does Mr. Beckett matter?
So the suspension, you're right, did come interestingly quickly last night. Howard Beckett is one of those one of the most important people in Union and Labour Party politics that you've never heard of. He is standing to be the General Secretary of Unite, so he would be replacing Len McCluskey, which is a significant role. He has been a thorn in the side of Keir Starmer ever since Keir Starmer became leader. He's probably allied with the Corbynite faction of the party. So when he did the tweet last night, there was very rapid condemnation from large parts of the party that would be opposed to his sort of politics, but also just on the basis of what he said. Some Labour MPs felt they could come out immediately, like Harriet Harman has said that this is has said that there is racism in this tweet and misogyny. Labour Party sources were denouncing it. But what's interesting is that this is a fight about what Howard Beckett said, but it's also has got the potential to spiral into a fight just against Unite, which is one of Labour's biggest backers, and potentially more widely, the sort of Corbynite left of the Labour Party. So it'll be fascinating to watch how this develops, whether Keir Starmer pushes for action or the independent process that must oversee action, quite where it takes us.
OK, Sam, you're going to be talking to us after we've heard from Howard Beckett, who joins us now. Mr. Beckett, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Let's try and just clarify matters. What did you mean in that tweet when you said Priti Patel should be deported and ended up by saying she is disgusting?
Well, I certainly didn't mean it to be taken literally, Adam. The idea that I would think that a Home Secretary would or should be deported. I am against all forms of deportation. It was only 2 weeks ago that I was on a rally that was moved on by the police on support, not deport, in reference to refugees. Obviously, what I was trying to do was highlight the fact that Priti Patel was taking a position from elitism and privilege, one that is racist. The consequence of that is very real for those people in Glasgow who were imprisoned by the police. This is the arm of the state carrying out racist legislation. And I wanted to highlight that. But obviously, I regret the words that were used. Some people read it in a literal context, and I apologize for those words. I took the tweet down in half an hour. I think if people read the other tweets that I had messaged at the same time, they would have seen it in that context. But yes, my language was inappropriate. I've apologized for it, and I've taken the tweet down.
The problem is that your instinct of talking about Priti Patel being deported, her parents were immigrants, so it seems as if there's a kind of sort of racist instinct in you that, people who come from immigrant families should be deported.
No, that's nonsense, Adam. And anybody who knows me or was reading the tweets knows that is nonsense. I don't look at Priti Patel and see her migrant background or see the colour of her skin. I look at Priti Patel and I see the racist agenda, the racist policies that are being carried out, the racist institutionalised racism that is now becoming a norm of society. The idea, we have now moved on from Windrush, we've moved on from go-home vans. We now have the government instructing the police to imprison people in vans and then deport them. That is a racist agenda, and that's what I was calling out. I wasn't making any racist commentary or any misogynistic commentary in respect of Priti Patel. It is about what she represents, and she represents a government that is carrying out a racist agenda, and that was the purpose of my tweets.
But it's also true, I mean, it surely was a mistake to use the word disgusting about a woman.
Well, the policies that she is carrying out are disgusting.
Yeah, but you said she is disgusting. You didn't say her policies are disgusting. You said she is disgusting.
Yes, Adam, I have apologised for that tweet. That tweet was inappropriate, and that's the reason as to why I've taken it down. It was inappropriate. It was wrong. I've put up an apology to Priti Patel directly, but the intention of the tweet was to draw to the attention of the wider public what is going on right now in society, and that is that we are seeing institutionalised racism become the norm, and we have to call that out. We have to expose that. That is the role of all good people in society, is to stand on the side of everyone who's been the victim of institutional racism.
Let's talk about your status. You've been suspended from the Labour Party, is that right?
Well, you know that, Adam. I don't know that. I haven't had the courtesy of a text or a phone call from Keir Starmer or David Evans or an email. So I heard last night on social media originally that I've been suspended from the Labour Party. I expected to hear
you still haven't had
quickly,
any official information that you've been...
No, I haven't. The Labour Party seems to have a go-to approach in respect of any situation as far as those on the left, which is suspension, and also seems to have a go-to approach, which is put the suspension out through the media. I've heard nothing.
And if you have been suspended, presumably you'll be disqualified from participating in the National Executive Committee, is that right?
That would be correct. If I'm suspended, I wouldn't be able to sit on the National Executive Committee.
And would you
be a shame?
Would you plan to appeal against this?
My suspension? Well, if I've been suspended, that's completely and utterly inappropriate. The tweet was wrong. I've apologised for the words that were in the tweet. But anybody who knows me, anybody who's seen the other context of the tweets, knows that the intention was to highlight a racist agenda of this government. It is correct that we should all be highlighting racist agendas. And I hope very quickly people in the Labour Party will see sense. And if there is a suspension, I hope they will remove it immediately.
And is your bid to succeed Len McCluskey over now? Because we've been looking at Unite's rule book. It says any member who is guilty of racism will be dealt with by the union. A member may be charged with inciting, espousing or practicing discrimination or intolerance. Does that mean basically you're going to withdraw your candidacy?
Absolutely not. I don't have a racist bone in my body, Adam. I've made it perfectly clear that the intention of that tweet was to highlight institutionalised racism on the part of the Tory government. And I won't resile from that at all. Not at all. I don't have a racist bone in my body. And the policies that are being carried out right here and now are racist, and they need to be called out as such. The police crime and sentencing legislation is a racist piece of legislation. The deporting of refugees is a racist act, and people need to stand up for the most vulnerable in society. So no, my voice will be heard, and I will not be doing anything other than putting my name forward for candidature of the General Secretary of Unite.
Do you think Unite has too big a role in the Labour Party, and it perhaps might do both of them, both institutions, a good idea if they separated a bit more?
I think the role of Unite in society is massively important at the moment. Labour is in an existential crisis, moving to a situation where it's becoming a party of establishment. Labour was created by workers for workers. It is supposed to be the voice of working class communities, and it is the role of Unite and other trade unions to remind the Labour leadership of their role in politics, which is to speak for working class people in the corridors of politics.
Do you want a change of leadership? Do you want Keir Starmer to go?
Well, Keir Starmer will have to question himself in regard to his leadership. I've been very vocal that at this moment in time, Keir Starmer is not showing leadership. It's very important that Keir Starmer steps up and starts talking about the real issues of society, the real policies that are needed to give people hope as to what we can have coming out of COVID, and shows opposition to a Conservative Party that is not only carrying out racist legislation at this moment in time, but is responsible for deaths of tens of thousands of people and is offering nothing for working class people coming out of COVID.
Mr. Beckett, just finally, you've explained yourself very clearly. Would you like to take this opportunity to issue a personal apology to Priti Patel?
I've already issued a personal apology to Priti Patel, Adam. As I said, that tweet was removed after 30 minutes, and I issued an apology saying that it was never intended to be interpreted literally. I'm against all forms of deportation. I, of course, know that you could never deport a Home Secretary, but I'm against all forms of deportation, and I apologise to anyone who read that tweet literally, and I referenced Priti Patel specifically in that apology because that tweet was wrong. But I do not want that tweet to remove us from the debate about the treatment of refugees in our countries. It is vital that we talk about the most vulnerable in society and the racist behaviour of this Tory government.
Mr. Beckett, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We do appreciate it. Well, Sam Coates, what do you make of that?
Thank you, Adam.
It looks like the Labour Party is gearing up for a big fight about specifically this issue. Howard Beckett said that he apologised to Priti Patel, but does not accept that he should face further disciplinary action from the Labour Party. As it stands, he is suspended. The instinct, I think, of Keir Starmer and those around him is for Howard Beckett to be removed, is the word that has been used to me. But I think that Howard Beckett, allies of Howard Beckett, are digging in for a fight to reject any attempt to do that. Critical in this, one thing that we haven't heard yet is what Len McCluskey thinks. He's the current General Secretary of Unite. I would expect him probably to come out and back Howard Beckett. And many others on the left just look this morning, when you look across social media, as if they're gearing up to use this issue to clash with Keir Starmer. If Keir Starmer wants to remove Howard Beckett, that will be a test of authority. If he can achieve it, it will show he is strong. If he now needs to retreat from what we understood people around him were thinking last night, it will prove once again for a second weekend in a row that there are limits to his authority.
Thank you very much indeed, Sam Coates.